Hi, I'm Matt Winslow from MW Productivity. I coach shop owners across the US and Canada to help them implement change in their shop. No contract and a money back guarantee. A lot of coaching companies are teaching the way to make money in auto repair is to focus on selling more labor and chasing a 60% margin on parts. The truth is, while that might work in some very isolated cases, it's a terrible idea for most auto repair shop owners. And worse, that strategy isn't the way you really make money in this business. So what happens when a shop owner tries to achieve this mythical 60% margin on parts? Well, two things. Number one, they price themselves out of their market, and so their customers begin to either complain or leave. And number two, once they realize their customers won't pay that price, they beat up their parts suppliers to try and achieve a 60% margin by buying the parts for less. This is a terrible decision. Here's why. Number one, because of the way their shop management software works, they don't realize that when they buy the parts for less and their software does the auto markup on parts the way it's designed, they actually make less money at the same margin. And here's the problem. They pay their bills with dollars, not percentages. And number two, when their parts vendor can't make a reasonable profit, getting quality parts is going to take a lot longer. Saving a few points, buying parts cheaper is a waste of time. Why? Well, let's say I'm a shop owner. I need my parts supplier to make money. So number one, they can stock the parts I need. Number two, they can provide the high quality parts I want so I can protect my reputation as a shop owner and have the confidence I'm installing the right parts that are best for my customers because, hey, I've spent years creating a brand of trust in my business, and it only takes a few bad repairs to tarnish or destroy my brand. And number three, I need my parts supplier to be profitable so they can afford to have the delivery vehicle so I can get the parts I want in a hurry. Guess what's the best way to go broke in auto repair? Have your tech standing around or having to move cars in and out multiple times because you're chiseling your parts vendor's profit margin so they can't afford to get quality parts to you in a hurry. Every moment a repair shop stands idle, they're burning cash. We'll talk more about that later. If I'm turning $120 an hour and I'm selling an hour of labor and my tech takes an hour to do it, basically at the end of that hour I have $120. Now, let's say the tech's working 40 hours a week, 49 weeks a year. You got a week for holidays, let's say 2 weeks vacation. That tech can turn $235,200 in labor hours per year. One tech can produce $19,600 monthly. Let's put in two techs here. And so really you're staffed to do $470,000 in labor sales a year. Current top line sales, $600,000. If you're looking at productivity this way, you'd think your techs are knocking it out of the park, right? Let's say labor 60% of your sales. Okay, well now I'm actually capable of doing $784,000. And on my $600,000 annual sales, my true productivity is only 76%. And again, the problem is you're focusing on labor. In reality, minimum, it should be a 50-50 mix if you're doing the right parts of labor mix. Now what are you capable of doing with those same techs? $940,000. So now your productivity is rolling at 63%. Anybody who's been around a while knows if I had cabin air filters, wiper blades, the quick movers, which I want to talk about in a minute, let's say I can get it to 45% of my business is labor, 55% is parts. Look what I can now do with those two techs. I can do $1 million a year. Same crew. It's not how fast they turn the hours. It's what do we add during those hours to the car in the form of parts. The money's in the parts. Labor is somewhat of a fixed thing in a business. You can improve efficiency to some degree, but the money's all in the parts, always has been. I want to kind of show you how business really works for these guys. And again, the problem is most of them don't know really how money's made in their business. And that's part of what we're going to do together is kind of help them figure that out over the next few months. Let's just say you got your typical shop. Half your sales should be parts, half your sales is labor. This is your traditional model. So let's just say we sold $50 worth of parts and $50 worth of labor. We had $100 for that period of time. So they're going to tell you that your tech cost should be about 20% of sales. That means you're making 60% of labor margin. If my labor rate was 50 and I'm trying to produce 60 in gross profit, my gross profit versus my labor rate is supposed to be 120%. But here's what nobody teaches these shop owners. So you have something called break-even point or overhead. Overhead is called SG&A costs. So S cost is the cost of the service advisor. Let's say I'm paying him 10% of top line sales. G&A is general and admin. General's rent, utilities, all that kind of stuff. And then admin is your owner's salary and anyone that works in the business that doesn't produce work other than the service advisor. So the model is to pay 10% of your sales for an advisor, 20% for G&A. Break-even point is 30% of sales. At this point, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, Matt. My coaching company told me those percentages are the budgets for overhead. But here's the part they probably didn't tell you. These are fixed costs. Fixed costs do not go up in dollars as you sell more parts and labor. And as for fixed costs as a percentage of total sales, the percentages actually go down as sales increase. For example, if my rent is about 50% of my sales and I double my sales, my rent in dollars didn't go up, so my rent cost as a percent of sales gets cut in half. Now my rent would only be 25% of my sales. This is why fixed costs tell us our break-even point. When it comes to making money in your business, there are two primary key performance indicators you should track. Number one, what is your break-even point in dollars? And number two, how much gross profit in dollars do you produce for every payroll hour you have each day, each week, each month, and each year? Why? Because once your gross profit in dollars passes your break-even point in dollars, now you start making money that you can keep. In this period of time, let's say this is 1 hour of time, we had to generate $30 in gross profit just to get back to zero. All right, so let's talk about how ShopOwner makes money. They sell half parts, half labor. They sell $100. They pay their techs, pay their parts. They got $60 in gross profit. They made $60. That's what making money is. You buy something, sell it for more than you paid for it. But they got this $30 in overhead they got to pay for that hour. So they made $30 on the 100, which is a 30% net. How are we doing so far? Well, we're making $30. That's good. But here's the problem. So they think, let's forget the parts. Let's focus on labor, labor, labor. We become the ultimate diagnostic shop, or we do a ton of alignments and don't sell any parts. So now let's sell an hour of time and not sell any parts. So let's take the parts out of the mix. Parts are gone. So now we sold $50 of labor in that hour. Wonderful. Our labor cost is still $20 on the 50. It's still 60% margin. Our cost of goods has gone from 40 to 20. Our gross profit's now $30 an hour. And here's the good news. Coaching companies go, you're knocking it out of the park. You got a 60% gross profit margin, don't you? But here's the problem. The advisor cost is still the same. The G&A is still the $20 in an hour. Your break even is still $30 in that hour. So what just happened is your cost of those things skyrocketed because you're still paying the $30 for that hour. You just have less sales to pay them against. So what's your net income when all's said and done? Zero. So if you sell an hour of labor, what does an hour of labor do? It pays for your overhead. Labor in business pays bills. Parts in business make money. So let's change this equation a little bit more. What if I could put $75 worth of parts in this thing? Now, instead of making $30, I made $45. So the game is all about the parts. Let's just talk about general auto repair. So here's your $120 an hour labor rate. And let's say you're at a 50-50 mixed parts to labor. So in that hour, you're going to produce $240. Let's say we're paying the tech $33 an hour. But in reality, it costs you $40. Why? Because we have something called tax and benefit cost. Your labor rate's $120. You sell an hour, takes them an hour to do it. It's 100% productivity. The cost of parts is $48. So we sold $240 worth of sales. We paid $87.60 to buy the parts and labor cost. Our gross profit is $152 an hour. That's how much money we made, but that's not how much money we keep because we have to pay the cost of the people selling the job, marketing expense, and G&A. And so let's say our break-even point per hour is $88.80. Our net income is $63.60, which is 27% of the $240, which is cool. You made $63.60. If the tech cost was $40 an hour, you would have made $55.20. So this is the perfect model. Our labor margin 60%, our parts margin 60%, our gross profit 60%. This is all these coaching companies teach up here. They totally ignore what's happening down at the bottom. Let's just say we sell an hour of labor and no parts. How'd that do for us? Well, here's the good news. You're still in the green because your gross profit's still 60%. Your coach is going to tell you you're doing great, man. You made $72, but your break-even point, which none of these guys know, is $88.80. So you actually lost $16.80. So guess what happens when you pay a flat rate tech 50 hours and he turns 50 hours of labor, no parts, because he's a real fast diagnostic guy? You lose $16.80 every hour he touches the car. How you feel about that? Our goal is to actually sell parts. So let's say we got back to selling parts here. Now we're making money. Now we're making $55.20. That's our budget. So let's just say you're paying your guy, you're paying him $40. Hey, you may be paying him less, and that's cool, but let's just say that's what the going rate is. Your labor rate's $120 an hour. Let's say he's going to do a brake job. How long does it take your guy to do it? About 40 minutes to an hour. 100% productive. He bills 1 for 1. So let's say you're putting pads on this sucker, and you're paying about $47 for those awesome perfect stops. Let's say we're selling the labor for 1 hour and parts 47. Theoretically, if you were to try and do the perfect model and making 60% on it, you would have to take your cost of 47 and sell it for $117.50. Okay, whatever. That's your magical 60% margin. So let's take a look at your costs. You pay the tech 48, which is the 40 plus the tax and benefits. Your parts cost you 47. So basically you bought $95 worth of labor and parts, sold it for $237. Your gross profit is $142.50 left over. That's how much money you made. That's how much you made on the sale. It's not what you get to keep. What you get to keep is a function of what is your break-even point. So let's now look at our break-even point. Out of this $142, we got to pay the advisor. We got to pay the marketing costs. So we got the general and admin. So our break-even point, $88. So we end up with $53.70 left over. So our goal is to make about $53.70 an hour on this job, right? You move the tech on to the next brake job. Is he going to be able to do that brake job in 10 minutes, or is that going to take him probably another 40 minutes to an hour? What do you think? Regardless of how many brake jobs he does, we're still going to end up with about $53.70 best case scenario. Am I right here? In profit after we pay the parts and labor for that hour time. So here's the problem with doing a pad slap on a car. It's usually you're going to do brakes around 50, 60,000 miles. You've had these heat cycles, and what happens is, if it's caliper system, you have O-rings in the caliper that swell. The pins start to get corroded, and so the caliper can't slide back and forth. Because remember, the piston pushes the inner pad, and then the caliper moving applies the outer pad. So what happens is you start to get uneven wear. Could you fix that? Yeah, if you rebuild the caliper, replace the square cut seal, which helps retract the piston, and if you put in all new pins and you replaced all the hardware and the O-rings and everything else, that would restore the brakes back to their original condition. Of course, at this point, now you got a rotor that's got a surface finish problem that's got run out, so you got to go machine it, which now makes it less efficient at getting rid of heat. And then you got to wash it, and you got to put it back on the car, and you put it all together. And if you do this right, you get a car that doesn't squeal, that gets decent brake life. If the customer got $60,000 out of the first set of brakes and he only gets $35,000 on the second set because we didn't do everything I just mentioned, how are they going to feel about that? They're kind of expecting another $60,000, right? And they should be able to get another 60 if the job's done right. Well, let's do a real brake job. You really need to overhaul the caliper and replace the square cut seal. That's the thing that retracts the piston. It deforms as you apply and pulls it back. And you also need to put in all new hardware and new seals. Wouldn't it be easier just to buy a caliper and put it on there? Let's see what calipers cost. Let's say we're buying the calipers for $62 a pop. Some people are telling you, well, you got to make 60 points on those too. So to do that, I'd have to buy them for $62 and sell them for $155 a piece. If I'm an affluent East Coast market and people got more money, they know what to do with, that might work. But do you have any concern that might price somebody out of the market? I kind of want people to come back. I want to build a relationship. How about we just sell them for less? And I'm not saying you have to, but let's just say we did. Is that okay? So list price is $103, which is a lot less than the $155. Let's be a community partner and help them out. So now we're going to take this and we're going to add another $206 to it. I think I'll even give them a deal on the friction. Is that okay? I bought the friction for $47. I'm selling for $117. List price is $83. Let's just say we did that. I mean, we could sell for more, but let's just be conservative. Is that okay with you? Okay, so instead of doing this route, just a pad slab, I'm going to do list price $83 for the pads, and then we got $206 list price for the calipers. Okay, so we're at $289 so far. $289. Now that's retail. Let's see what my cost is on this so far. I got $47 for the pads, plus 62 for each caliper. So I'm into this for 171. We still got to take the rotors off, machine them, put them back on the car. And here's the problem with that. Recurring pulsation comes from the fact that the rotor develops run out. When you take a rotor with rust and everything else and rust and build up and you have a surface finish problem and you put it back on the car even after you machine it, it creates a mating error, it creates runouts. In reality, most people are going to tell you to replace the rotors. Not to mention today's rotors on today's lightweight cars for fuel economy, they're designed pretty much to be single use. They don't really have a lot of reserve left. I mean, we're not driving 1971 Cadillacs where the rotor is 2 inches thick, right? By the way, if we just do the calipers and the pads, and we just sold them at list price, now we're making $101 in that hour time instead of $53.70. How do you feel about that? Now, keep in mind, your margin went down on parts. You're not making 60% on the parts, but you're making twice the money on the actual net profit. Would you be okay with making less margin where your coach is yelling at you saying the margin isn't high enough, but you made twice the money in the bank? Would you be okay with that? Let's say we got some rotors here. We're buying them for, $54 a piece. List price is $142. And that's okay. Let's just say, though, that that's going to price me out of the market. Let's say I only sell them for $100 a piece. Would I normally do that? No, but let's just say I did. I'm in a competitive situation. I want to bring this person back. So I buy them for $54 and I sell them for $100 a piece. Even below list at this point. New cost of parts is $279. Let's say we sell them for $100 a piece. So we're going to take this to $489 and we're going to be competitive, way below what anyone else is selling it for. But hey, let's just say we had to do that. So out the door, $600. Cost of parts was $279. How much extra time does it take to take a used rotor off and put a new rotor that you don't have to machine back on? And how much time does it take to take a caliper off, put it back on? I mean, you could add a brake flush to it. In reality, it's as simple as you just basically take the caliper off, put it on. You don't even have to clean anything up. It's about the same amount of time. So in reality, we're still talking an hour here, right? Our margin on parts here is only 43%. Everybody says we got to have 60. We're only doing 43%. Well, let's take a look at what happens. So the customer says this is a good package. They can afford this. They put it on their CF&A card. And in that hour of time, instead of making $53.70, I made $193.20 at a 43% margin. So would you rather have a 60% margin and make $53.70 for that hour of time, or would you rather be competitive, have a 43% parts margin and make $193.20 in that hour? Which do you prefer? As a business owner, where's the money? Is it in more labor? Do you really want your tech to go so fast they don't recommend those parts? They just want to slap the pads on it, get it out the door. Is that really what you want? It's absolute, utter nonsense. They price them out of the market. Their car count dies. They don't make any money, so they can't afford to pay techs. And look at this example. I'm paying this tech $40 an hour. Check this out. Let's say you're in a tough market. You can't find a tech. I can get you a tech. You got to pay him. Let's say I pay this guy $55 an hour. Do you have to pay that? No, but let's just say that's the only way you could get a tech. Could you still make money? Sure, why not? You made $175 instead of $53.70, and you got the most expensive tech around. You got the best tech around. Let me ask you a question. If everybody else around you is making $30 and you can pay them $55 and make 3 times the money, do you think you could find techs? But how do we get there? We get there by not overcharging people. We get there by focusing on doing a complete service. And we do that by taking care of the customer and taking care of your people. And the customer's going to come back and tell all their friends because we gave them a fair price. You know, a lot of people offer something called a loss leader oil change. Here's what your typical shop does. They're paying the guy $33 an hour. They bill the customer 3/10 for the oil change. Takes the tech about a half hour with the DVI. They said the parts cost was about $27.58 for, I think, the 5 quarts of oil and the oil filter. So they said basically they're selling it for $69. This is their model. So we bought parts for $27.58. We got the tech tied up for a half hour, even though we're billing 3/10. So here's our labor sales, parts sales. Here's our labor cost, parts cost. Total cost of goods, $47 against $69 revenue. So we made $21.62 for that half hour. Then we have our fixed cost. You actually lost money. So let's say we add a cabin air filter. What do you guys sell that for? And they were giving me like $50. I said, okay, a car dealer sells that for $90 install, but hey, that's cool. You want to be cheaper? What do you pay for that? And they told me what they paid for it. They're getting wipers for about $19 or something. Let's just do wipers and a cabin air filter along with this. In this example, we were billing 3/10 of an hour. It took the guy 5/10 to do the job. Here, we're going to charge a little bit to install this stuff. So now we're at 6/10. Oil change is now more profitable than general auto repair, and I get to look at the car for all the other stuff. If you're ready to make more money, enjoy more free time, enjoy less stress, and make things run smoother, then reach out to me today by phone, text, or email and schedule some time where we can chat confidentially. I look forward to hearing from you.